What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. This time, we're going to be taking a look at Urban Legend, directed by Jamie Banks. Now, Urban Legend, I consider to be the third piece of the '90s horror triangle that includes Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. To a lesser extent, Urban Legend was that final piece of the Now, does that does Urban Legend live up to Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer in terms of quality? No, it doesn't. Especially when it comes to Scream, because Scream is the granddaddy of the '90s horror craze. And I Know What You Did Last Summer pretty much piggybacked off Scream, which is why that movie was so popular. And Urban Legend kind of came out 2 years later, just as it was starting to wind down a little bit. The whole self-referential horror starting to really wind down, and it was really starting to become a cliche to itself. So Urban Legend kind of came in at the tail end of when the '90s craze was it was pretty much going on its last legs. But does that make Urban Legends a bad movie? No, it doesn't. Is it as good as Scream or Our No to Last Summer? No, it's not. It's not as good as those movies in terms of like its story or its in terms of story or its quality. But does that make it a bad movie? Absolutely no, not at all. From a production standpoint, this is a really well put together movie. You got a really great score by Christopher Young, who had done wonders with Hellraiser and also did Spider-Man 3. You had Jamie Blanks, who did another cult film known as Valentine, which is another one of those, which is another self-referential spy slasher flick that came out in 2001. But he did this movie first, and he did a good job with his direction skills. I thought it was great. I thought this movie is wonderfully shot. Cinematography does well done. You got a good cast of up-and-comers at that time, like Joshua Jackson, Alicia Witt, Jared Leto, Michael Rosenbaum, and you have a beautiful supporting cast that includes Robert Englund, Loretta Davis, Brad Dourif, and John Neville. So this movie's got good talent in front and behind the camera, and you get a quality horror film. Now, the plot for this movie speaks for itself. This killer's going around committing murders based on urban legends, and he's terrorizing a college campus. And one of the people that's being terrorized the most is the character of Natalie, played by Alicia Witt, who, as we find as the movie progresses, has a connection to the killer unbeknownst to her. Well, she is connected to the killer because the killer is her friend, played by Rebecca Gayheart, but take that element away, we find out that Natalie and her friend Michelle Mancini, who was killed, and the character of Michelle Mancini is in the first 10 minutes of this movie, which I consider to be the best part of this movie is the first 10 minutes of this movie. I love the first 10 minutes of this movie. I thought the first 10 minutes had everything what you want in a horror movie. It had great tight direction. It had beautiful suspense. You had Brad fucking Dourif being Brad fucking Dourif. I love Brad Dourif, and I love him in the first 10 minutes of this movie. And I really wish his character would have done more in this movie, but he just comes across, but he's really just used as a cameo and as a red herring. I really wish this movie would have gave me more Brad Dourif in some scenes, because I kind of liked his character, which is a nice homage to his character of Billy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, because he gave him a lisp and a stutter. But those first 10 minutes of the movie pretty much kickstart the chain of events in this movie. We find out that the character of Michelle Mancini and the character of Natalie once played a initiation prank on an unsuspecting person on the highway, and because of their prank, that man tragically died. And we find out that the killer was romantically linked to that said person, and they're going to be wed. And of course, she's getting her revenge by knocking off every single one of Natalie's friends as a way to get to her. All the while, Rebecca Gayheart, who is the killer in this movie, she is Natalie's best friend, and she just infiltrated her life, because when you look at the pantheon of serial killers like to get to know their prey, so they will go into their personal life and try to wreck it from within, and that's what the character of Rebecca Gayheart does. And I thought Rebecca Gayheart overall was very, very solid as the killer. There were a couple of instances where a lot of the things that she does can be a little bit implausible, and you got to suspend your suspension of disbelief, because some of the things she does requires a little bit of a strength, and Rebecca Gayheart doesn't look like the most physically imposing person in the world. I don't care what adrenaline can do; it doesn't do it that good. So you gotta suspend your disbelief a little bit. But overall, I thought she was fine. And when she gets revealed as the killer, she goes all over the top. Chewing glory. It's great. But my biggest flaw with this movie is that the character of Natalie, she's just not that interesting. Take away the fact that was she's connected in a way to the killer. She's not take that element away. There's nothing really about her that stands out. You know, Jared Leto's character of Paul. He's a more interesting character because he's a journalist who is investigating these murders. I almost wish he was more or less the main lead and not just a co-lead. You have Robert Englund's character, who is more interesting as Professor Wexler, because we find out that Professor Wexler was involved in a massacre that took place on the campus during the early 70s, and as a way to keep him shush, the school gave him a permanent job. I would have liked to know more about that. I think Wexler was a character that intrigued me. I think the character of Reese, played by Loretta Devine, is a more interesting character. She definitely has more personality. I think Reese is very, very witty, and she's a badass. She kicks ass, especially at the end of this movie where she gets to have a little scuffle with the killer, and she nearly kicks it, and she kicks that major ass. Reese is cool in my book, and Loretta Davis, I just love her in this movie. I just love her as the character of Reese in general. She has that likable charisma to her, and I like John Neville as the dean. He has that uptight British douchiness to him, so that's cool. So he's cool too, and it's a damn shame. These people and their characters, they overshadow, the character of Natalie, and that just proves just how underwritten she is and just how much of a blank slate she really is, The character of Joshua Jackson's got more charisma, just for him being a practical joker. Michael Rosenbaum's character's got more charisma because it's Michael fucking Rosenbaum. That guy's just a very charismatic actor. And it's a damn shame that these people overshadow Alicia Witt in a way, and it's a damn shame that even though Alicia Witt does a fine job, she pretty much has a blank slate to work with, and she's one of the more weaker final girls. She's not as interesting as a Sidney Prescott, who actually has a good, interesting story to her. She's not, the character of Julie from I Know What You Did Last Summer, she's also flawed in her way in terms of character personality, but I find myself rooting for Jennifer Love Hewitt more than I do Alicia Witt. And again, I'm not putting the blame on the actress. She did the best job she possibly could with an underwritten character. So yeah, that's my main flaw with this movie, is that the final girl in a horror movie should always be the best written character, because when the shit hits the fan, we have to root for that character. And there are moments where I don't find myself necessarily rooting for the character of Natalie. I find myself rooting more for the character of Paul, because Jared Leto, gives Paul some personality, gives Paul some life. And Paul's already an interesting character just by the fact that he's a journalist and he's investigating the murders the best way he can. I find myself grabbing on more to Reese because she has this fun, outgoing personality to her as well, and she has badass tendencies to her. And again, it's a damn shame that all these characters overshadow the character of Natalie. So yeah, that's with that. Other than that, this movie has good production value. It's got some good kills in it. I like how they recreated a lot of the urban legend kills, like when Joshua Jackson dies. When his character dies, they recreate the whole, girlfriend hears noise on the roof, but it's really it's really the guy being, strangled to death by a noose, and she drives away, and pretty much he snaps his neck. We have a character played by Tara Reid, who is screaming for her life over the radio, and everyone thinks she's doing a performance art type deal. Someone who's actually being attacked, everyone thinks is actually acting when she's actually not acting. So I like how they did that. I like how they almost did the kidney heist at the end. The whole killer hiding in the back seat, which is part of the first 10 minutes of this movie, that was in it too. That played a good role in it too. So yeah, this movie did a good utilization of its kills. Also, side note, Danielle Harris makes an appearance in this movie, and any movie that has Danielle Harris is cool in my book. So yeah, like overall, Urban Legends to me is a very fun horror movie. Is it as good as Scream? No. Is it on the same level as I Know What You Did Last Summer? Yes and no. I think I Know What You Did Last Summer has a much better whodunit story to it, but I think Urban Legends is better in terms of, I think Urban Legends has a slightly better cast and has slightly better kills than I Know What You Did Last Summer. And of course, having legacy actors in Urban Legends did wonders for that movie and puts it a little further up the ladder than I Know What You Did Last Summer. But I'm going to give Urban Legend solid 7 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. It does have some flaws to it with its writing, but overall, it's a fun little slasher flick. You can watch it, you watch it, you'll be entertained by it. It's not boring, it never drags. So yeah, Urban Legends for me gets a solid 7 out of 10. So if you like this movie, let me know in the comment sections down below. Do you like it? Do you hate it? I would like to know. Like this video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.